If anybody wants to have some teas and coffees, we've got another round of teas and coffees just before we leave as well. Thank you. Sorry?
Oh, that's all right. Flour.
We can throw things at him now, can't we?
No, I wouldn't like to do that. You shouldn't do it as well. You know, I'm not getting paid, but you're getting. I can do it.
That's right. Boss can do it. I can't. It wasn't me. It was Boss.
No.
Sorry.
Are the speakers on? Are they on? Yeah? Okay. Right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bosik Garapetian, and I'm a trustee of British Polio Fellowship. I'd like to welcome you to this, our last of 7 roadshows. For those of you who've joined us on our live web streaming channel, I extend my welcome to you as well. I'll be facilitating, chairing this session. Before we begin, there are some housekeeping items which I'd like to draw your attention to. There are no scheduled fire alarm tests for today, so if you hear the fire alarm, please make your way to the nearest fire exit, which is at the back there and through here, and the assembly point is going to be at the car park. There are central office staff members present to assist you in case you need any you have any questions or you need any direction. The toilets are through the corridor. They're clearly marked for ladies and gentlemen and disabled. It would also help us if you could either switch off your mobile phones or put them on silence. Finally, we'll be taking photographs, and as I said, it's being streamed on web. So if you do not want any photographs of you taken, then please let us know, so we'll point the camera to somewhere else, away from you. Before I come to the aim of this meeting, I'd like to introduce Kripin, who's got an announcement to make.
Good afternoon. My name's Kripin. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at Fellowship, for people who don't know me. Wanted to, young David over there has asked me to do a call to arms. Basically, he's doing a collection in Watford on the 24th of June, and if he wants volunteers. So anybody who can volunteer for the whole day, part of the day, whatever you can help, David would really, really appreciate it. And just speak to David before you go today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Even an hour would be very much appreciated, and I think you will enjoy it. Those of you who are in wheelchairs will find it an especially special day, because people are much more likely to talk to you and more generous, because it shows more your polio, and if you don't listen. It shows much more your polio, um, if you don't have sticks or anything like that. But it's a lovely day. We're a small group of people, and yeah, it's very much appreciated by our head office. And I would like to say just one very short word, that I've been privileged many times to go into the head office. We are so lucky to have you, Ted, and your team. I'm 72, and I have to say I've never met a team like we have at the moment in the British Polio Fellowship. And it's right through, it's a whole lot. So please, when you've got problems, and I heard many of you talking today, many of you are carrying these problems, please let them help you. They are a fantastic group of people. And I'm so privileged to know all of you.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you, David. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much, David. Thank you. Just coming back to the roadshow, the aim of today's roadshow is, together with the online and the postal survey, is to get a snapshot of members' views on a range of subjects and spending priorities. So we've got Yvonne, who will be coming around with has got the microphone. Could you introduce yourself and state your question, which will, or your views, which we'll note down. Are there any questions with regards to arrangements? Have I covered everything, or have I missed anything? No. I'd like to hand over to Ted Hill. All of you, or many of you know, our CEO, who will take you through the agenda.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone, and welcome those people who are visiting us online. We're flirting with technology, so it is a bit of a trial for us. If this works, then hopefully we want to extend that, so perhaps the AGM and so forth can be live streamed as well, so we actually be able to get our message out to more of our members. So, as Bozic, I'm not going to cover that again. Bozic's very ably gone through what the aims are of today. So the agenda for today, we've got a lot to get into 2 hours, so we're going to have to be quite short in each of the sections. We want to talk about the long-term future of the fellowship and where the organisation is going as a whole. We want to talk about how trustees are elected and representation, how you feel about that, and what if anything we should change that. We want to talk about the indoor games, the value of the games and the cost of the games. Burnham bungalow, we want to talk about that and get your views on the bungalow and its value. And then at the end, there's a longer section which for you to raise your issues, concerns, to tell us what we do right, tell us what we get wrong, and so we can actually put that together. So that's the basic agenda for this afternoon. So as I say, time is short, so without further ado, if we go on to the first section, which is the future of the fellowship. Well, you don't need me to tell you that obviously we were formed back in 1939. So we're quite rapidly heading towards our 80th anniversary in 2019. Currently, the median age of our members is 71. So clearly, in another 15 years or so, then the median age is going to be about 86. So most of the members will be 86 at that sort of time. So what do? Do we start thinking now about a structured closure of the charity and our services? Or do we consider maybe merging with another charity, another neurological charity, to extend ourselves that way? Do we change what we do to become a charity with wider charitable aims? Maybe something along disability access or something like that? Or do we change what I think is our unique selling point as being the world leaders on PPS? So they're the talking points, and really it's now for you to give us your issues. Crippen here is scribbling everything down. It won't be it's taken down. It won't be used in evidence against you. What it would do, we'd add that into the pot, so we get all the information captured later on. So anything you say will not be attributed to you. So, Chair, back to you.
Yeah. Any questions? Any views? Who wants to kick off?
Yeah, I'll get a mic as well. I did it my way. We've got Trustee funds. Yeah, we're the Essex and East London branch, and on that age situation, we're now seeing quite a few people from Asia and Africa coming in who are a lot younger than 71, certainly. And we're not finding them so dynamic, but they're happy to come along and see what goes on. Really, that's basically my view from Bangladesh, India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, and right across the centre of Africa, we've got Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. So, did I say Uganda? Yeah, there's one there. Don't want to bore you with too much information, but certainly a lot younger than 71. There you go.
Thank you. Yeah, and it is our aim to attract more ethnic minorities. We started this project about 6 months ago, and we are actually working on various avenues. And I'm grateful for your comments that you've got various ethnic minorities joining your branch or your region. Then you can always encourage them to get involved, either become a member or be involved and receive the bulletin.
Well, there's certainly a member of the BPF. There's certainly a member of the BPF. Otherwise, we wouldn't have. They wouldn't have found us.
Yeah.
We struggled. I think we've got one lady from Colombia and another one from Kenya who've come onto our committee, which is useful. You get a different view of things then. But again, some of the other guys are not. Although they did go up to the games. We had a few turn up at the games. So maybe we're getting the word across.
Yeah. Thank you.
There we go.
Thank you. Very useful. Thank you. Any more comments, either with regards to that comment or any with regards to what Ted said on the future?
There are people I've come across, namely one lady at St Thomas's when I was there on the PPS rehab course. She was a lady who had never had polio or had any polio symptoms, but her brother had had polio, and she'd actually got PPS as diagnosed at St Thomas's because her brother had had polio and she'd been exposed to her brother's polio, but with no paralytic effects herself at the time. We don't know how many people are out there who are suffering from PPS today who actually have been told by the doctors they've got MS or CFS.
Yeah.
They may actually have PPS. There may be 10, there may be 1,000. We don't know.
Thank you. Just microphone.
Did you know I've got a bit of a sore throat? We've got 3 members in our North London branch, and they're only in their 50s. And we've got more on the mailing list, but at this moment in time, don't come to meetings.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Bridget. I think that the majority of our members are going to be on the elderly bracket, like myself. And we also need to be able to accommodate the younger members joining us. That's great. But I think we need to think about what the needs of the members of the fellowship are going to be, so that we can address that before we finally decide on where our future should be. If I look at be the world leading charity on PPS, I think that's probably too ambitious for us because we're quite small, and it's going to cost hundreds of thousands of pounds to get to being that. So my preference at the moment would be to merge with another charity that has people with similar disabilities or symptoms similar to those of PPS, so that we can still grow and expand the services that we need to help all of our members, bearing in mind that the older group are going to get less and less mobile, and it's going to be more difficult to become members of branches and to contribute. And they're going to have different needs to those of some of our younger members who are coming on board with us now.
Thank you, Bridget. Any comments? Because of what Bridget said? No? Okay. Anything else on the bullet points which actually cross your mind to comment or Any views? Yep. You know.
Hi, I'm Chris Standing from the Sutton branch. Really just whether you've come across examples of any other charities that have successfully merged or broadened their horizons, because, you know, obviously some charities like Mencap have rebranded, and Age Concern, for example. Just really what the experience of other charities might have been.
That's a really good point. Certainly, there are good examples of larger charities. Age Concern merging with another charity to become Age UK. That's worked very well. Neither appear to have lost their role. Both of those charities seem to feel they're quite happy where they are. There are certainly examples of other charities where they've merged, where one partner has been dominant and the less dominant partner has lost their meaning. So that's the gamble. It's merging with another charity, but still retaining the impact of what you want to do as a charity. There are a number of charities out there which are merging all the time. It's tough out there, and indeed the Charity Commission are quite keen, I think, to see that smaller charities merge together if they've got a very similar or the same aim in life. But I think with ourselves, we'd have to be very careful if we did go down the merger route to merge with a charity that we feel A, very comfortable with, and B, that we wouldn't get sort of sucked into some great vacuum and lose our reason for being there. And most of these things, it's about balance, isn't it? But if we did go down that route, that's certainly something I think that the trustees look very carefully at.
I wonder whether the first...
Sorry, David. Just... Okay.
Yeah, Eddie Lucas, Watford. On the subject of finding some of the people who speak the ethnic languages, it may well increase the membership in the sense of translation. So it might be worth doing some sort of a printout or a message in the varying languages to describe the polio fellowship as it is, because oftentimes when you speak to someone who speaks a different language, there's confusion. I think if you then did something in their mother tongue, it becomes closer to their heart. It then more attaches to their disability and them as a person with polio. And so then you can attract that, which then might accelerate and populate the membership from those different backgrounds and different groups. But when you hear somebody speaking your mother tongue, it's a world of difference, isn't it? So that may well attract the membership, which would then help you, Ted and the organisation, maybe not to consider expanding with another charity, with all the challenges you mentioned.
Thank you, David.
Looking at the possibilities over there, I like the idea, provided we obviously keep our identity and don't lose our identity, to merge with another charity and then to take the challenge to change to being world-leading charity on PPS. Now, if we merge with a charity which has got similar things to us, that could be a dual one where there's a link, and that would be a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you. Any more comments?
Sorry, something's just come to mind, the conversation I had yesterday. There is something in the wind that I heard about yesterday about a new charity being formed, of which we might be part of, which might be relative to PPS now. I've just realised that. So my vote would be to change to being something like a world-leading charity on PPS, or go down that line, because PPS is definitely the emerging problem, if you see what I mean, or the recently emerging problem. And the problem that everybody's being faced with today, it's not actually the polio itself. Most people have coped with that for the last 40 or 50 years. But now we've got to look forward to the next 20 years of PPS. Well, I'm saying 20 years in my case, that's if I reach about 85 or whatever, but maybe I won't get that far. Maybe I'll be lucky, but sorry.
Thank you. think we exhausted that tape. I think we've exhausted that.
Thank you very much.
Just move on.
Moving swiftly on now. So, we're... Sorry.
Was there? Okay, sorry.
Something that's in my mind at the moment that we're finding very hard to, I suppose, evaluate. PPS is really only given because there's no other medical condition that can describe what we're going through. And we have to omit or eradicate, or basically change or get, what should I say, confirmation that it's not because of another condition. So wouldn't that be difficult if you actually now, let's say you're looking to another charity that may have these conditions? Will that not detract from the fact that it's PPS? Will we lose that particular heading because now we're joined with another condition that this charity is dealing with?
I understand your concerns, but
Yeah.
what we're saying is, if there was a merger, then obviously the fellowship will want to retain its own identity within that merger. So anything to do with PPS would not be lost. It would just be another theme, another strand of what that charity does. In terms of PPS, it's there. I think you'll recognise it's there. The medical profession will realise it's there. And in your bulletins, which should be on your doorsteps tomorrow, there's an article in about popsicle. And I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you read your bulletin. But it's about how in the future we might be able to move that forward in terms of research and in terms of actually addressing PPS. So no, we don't want to lose the work and the intensity and the momentum we've already got now beyond PPS. This is something else about how smaller charities can merge to be so that it's greater than the sum of the whole. So the combined effort of a larger charity has some sort of impetus. So we'll try not to lose that.
Yeah, I just wonder, have you had any approaches from other charities, or and we haven't approached anyone?
No.
As yet? So that's completely...
These are talking points. These aren't...
Just talking, there's no approaches from anyone. Okay, thank you.
Okay, moving swiftly on then, as I was saying, trustee elections and how you're represented. So, as you know, currently the trustees are elected on a 3-year cycle, and they're for 3 terms from across the UK. And they're elected from across the UK based on their skills, their knowledge, their experience, and they're there to represent everyone within the charity. There are 8 of those, and they can co-opt another 4 additional trustees to fill in the skills gaps which they see. So, is that the right approach? Have we got that right? So, in principle, should trustees be elected as at present to represent members as a whole, or should, as been suggested in some areas, trustees be elected regionally? So there is a definite representation from each of our regions. So the South West, Yorkshire, Scotland, etc., etc. So they're the two ends of that particular argument. Again, your comments, please, greatly appreciated.
Anything else?
Hogging this a bit. When we were at the AGM last year, I think, over in Raynham, there was a question raised about the regions and where they were, and has that been addressed?
This is what this is about.
This is it.
About this, together with the bulletin survey, together with the online survey, all being collated to get some idea what your views are. That will then be put together to report to go to the trustees, and then the trustees will make some recommendations to the AGM. So basically the task given to the trustees was to come back to the next AGM, i.e. in September, with some proposals on the way forward. And as part of that, we want to try and get some idea of what the wider view is before those recommendations are made. And whatever the recommendation would be, if there's a change in MEMS and arts, then that would have to go to a full vote anyway. So we just need to get the foundations in place and understand where we're starting from.
Yeah, I'm with you. Thanks.
Yvonne.
Just remembered, I'm at a regional meeting on... Can you hear me? I'm at a regional meeting on Saturday, which will be the East Midlands branch, and we're meeting in Leicester, but to be quite honest, there'll probably only be about 4 or 5 of us turn up. I mean, I'm actually the vice chairman. There'll be me, the vice chairman, the chairman, and probably 3 or 4 others, if we're lucky. We're not going to be representative in this. We can get people from the actual branches to come, but the branches don't really see that regions are that important. They're much more into branches. I mean, our branch, Northamptonshire branch, is much more active than the regional branch. We had a meeting yesterday. There were 25, 30 people there. There is regularly, every month, at our branch meetings, 25 or 30 people there. Yet at the regional meetings, there's a handful.
Yeah, belated.
Essex and East London branch. Can I answer that gentleman? We've been going now about 8 years and we've never had an invitation to go to a regional. Somehow we're home counties north. Goodness knows how Essex and Romford and things like that got into home counties north. And when we had the AGM, that was one of the questions was raised. How do you define your regions? I mean, I've no idea where the regional thing takes place.
Yeah. Again, that was something that was raised at the AGM last year about the organisation of the current regions, and it's been very historical. It is as simple as that. So part of this current work is to look at the current regions to see whether it's appropriate or not. I think a real good example is that of Western region, which covers from Walsall all the way down to Land's End. Now that's just crazy region. So I think that there's an argument to be made that that region can be separated certainly into two, if not more. So you've got the South West Peninsula and effectively West Midlands. So it's looking at that larger picture and also the picture of actually divvying up the regions again. So it's more rational. That said, as Carl was saying, you then got to get the people to fill the roles. So it's 6 of one and a half dozen of the other.
I mean, where is the region home counties north?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, to be honest with you.
I think
the tally ho in Finchley comes to mind. I think they meet there, don't they? That's North London. That's the branch. Yeah.
The actual region, I think, is Aidan used to run it, and Margaret was the secretary. And since Margaret has got unable to do it, I think it's nearly in decline. It's just kept going for the games.
I'm not sure what you call that. The point being made was that a number of regions, and that's not the only one, they're effectively in decline. And what tends to be happening now, they just keep on going for the games and moving in that direction. Well, that's something else which is going into the melting pot. Is there an ability to carry on in the structures we've got? So I say that's what all this is about. So those comments are very valuable and very useful, and Crippen has got them down. That will go into the melting pot, so the trustees can make some determination on the way forward.
There's travelling's a problem as well. I mean, Kings Lynn won't join us because there's a better connection with London, so they join with North London because they don't want to come across to Leicester because there's no rail line. They jump on the train at Kings Lynn. It's fine. It's a bloody good service. I mean, we have demographic problems. This is one of my problems. Should trustees be elected regionally, how are they going to get together? Unless it's a conference call or thing. I mean, most of our members are getting older. Most of our members don't want to travel far. I don't want to travel far, and I'm not that old in the scale of things compared to my father, so who still survives, old bugger. He's 90. He's 91 this year. Anyway. It's hard work to travel, especially to eat. Most of our members won't go out in the evening for a start, so it's only during the day, and that restricts it perhaps to weekends because of you have to find premises that are available as well and pay for them, or it all adds up. I mean, I don't personally think that it matters where the trustees come from, so long as they know about polio and PPS and disabilities.
Yeah.
They're just a group of people that need to get together with a common songbook.
Yeah.
And
just to answer that question directly, the trustees, our members' and answer right clear. It says that 75% of the board must be polios. They must have had polio. As we currently have it, it's 100%. So clearly the trustees understand exactly the issues, concerns of the member because they're a member themselves. You know, there are no people brought in to do the job.
I have a question. What percentage of our members do not belong to a branch or a region?
It's about 67% belong to central office rather than branch.
Okay, then I think that answers where I'm coming from then. As a member organisation, I feel that we should be supporting all of our members. And if the majority of our members aren't members of branches or regions, and that's going to become more difficult as mobility becomes harder, then I believe that trustees should be elected to represent all members.
Thank you.
Thank you. To answer that lady, I've recently been away, and at another table I got talking to somebody, and she comes from Leicester. She has got polio, and she is a member, and she asked me if there was a branch in Leicester, and I didn't know the answer. So I've given her Yvonne's phone number to ring her to ask. About 2 years ago, in the bulletin, you done a list of numbers anyone could contact for where the branches were. Do you not think this might be another good idea to do that? Yes. Because this lady, you know, it's what that lady said. A lot of people don't know where the branches are or groups in their little bit where they live. So.
Absolutely right. From this in the surveys, that a number of people say they don't attend branches because they don't know where it is. Well, that's the simplest thing to do is to put the contact details down so people can make an informed decision whether they do want to go to a branch or not. The Yvonne who's standing right behind you is sorting out as we speak.
Yeah, thank you. Any other views? I think that we can move on. There's no other views. Yeah, thank you.
The indoor games. Right. So, as you know, the game's got a long history of the fellowship. You know, and as you know, at the moment, the regional heats, and the finalists from those regions go to the national finals, which are held in Leicester, in March next year. So, the event is currently heavily subsidised by the fellowship, and the attendees pay about £110 for 2 nights, accommodation, meals, etc., etc. We've got some winners there. Yeah. So the games, the cost of the games in the region of about £40,000, not cheap. And we have about 220 people attend each year. So the cost per attendee to the fellowship is about 180 quid. So that's the level of sponsorship. It's just a bit above, it's a bit above that, but about 180 quid. So we have some guidance, please. So, should the fellowship continue to sponsor the games at the same sort of level? Sponsor it to a lesser level by increasing the cost for those people who are attending. Hold the games every other year, so effectively saving £40 a year, or say this is enough every games. I'm only the messenger, people shoot me like
that. Yeah, I've attended the games twice. I thought it was absolutely brilliant. I mean, the people, it brings together more people than at the AGM because it brings people from Northern Ireland, Scotland. They come as teams, they all talk to each other in the evening, we all have a chat about similar things. The 40k sounds a bit shocking because I did understand that Leicester contributed something like 10 grand a year or something like that. I'm off the top of my head. And they sort of organised, that's why it's at the Marriott, I understand, but perhaps I'm wrong there, but I do know they contribute about 10,000. I don't know if that 10,000 is off the 40, but I think that's 10,000 of their own money, so that figure should really be 30 grand, if you don't mind me saying, from the fellowship, because it's 10,000 from a bequeathment to Leicester. Also, we pay a certain amount for the weekend. I don't know if that's taken off the 40 grand or added into it or what. The 40 grand figure sounds a bit just 40 grand. It doesn't mean a lot to me without knowing where that money's gone or where it's came from.
So to answer that directly, Cole, 40 grand is the cost of the games. That's what it costs to put it on. And as you rightly say, there are contributions from members, let's say £110 each, effectively. And there is a 10 grand contribution annually from Leicester. Absolutely right. But remember, that is fellowship money anyway. So it's just been recirculated round. But what we're trying to get at, the cost of the cost of the games each year is 40 grand. That's what it costs to put it on. How it's made up is, as you suggested, donations, a bit of income from this, that and the other, but that's the cost. Is it money well spent? That's for you to to suggest to me now, and indeed so I can suggest to the trustees. But you're quite right as well. It's our flagship event. We no longer have an AGM which is all singing, all dancing, literally, but we do have this event which brings people together. There's a lot to be said for it. It's just a realisation that these events do cost money, and that's the cost of the games.
I just think the 40 grand is a bit like the Brexit bus, 460 million, where actually it was 280 million. I'd be happy if you said something like it cost the fellowship something like 25 grand or something, and deducted what the other people put in. I mean, the bequeathment to Leicester was for to be spent on Leicester branch, so it doesn't come back to head office unless Leicester close, does it, by constitution. So they're going to spend it on themselves anyway. If it doesn't go on the regional games, they're not going to give it to head office. They're going to spend 10 grand and have a bloody good holiday.
I'd actually like to see it get bigger, with more people going and more games. I'm sure there's lots of people, if only they knew about it, they would want to go.
Again, it was the people have joined our branch more recently from some of these Asian and African countries. They came along and they were able to meet everyone, and I think they thoroughly enjoyed it, and it was a big eye-opener to them, and I think you should definitely continue with it. How you cost it, we thoroughly enjoy it. Costing 40 grand again seems a bit of a lump. Would I pay a bit more for it? You're saying we pay £110 per person? Yeah. I think if you're getting 200, if you had 10, 15 quid today, it's not going to make a big hole in it, is it? Not really. But I would hate to see it end, because we find it very informative. You meet some really nice people, and it opens it up to new members in a big way. Yeah.
Hello, Maria again. I have been working full-time up to recently, and I would like to attend the games. I was not able to do it before, and if I have to pay some extra money, I would be happy to do it. I think it is a very good, for me as a member and as a younger member, I would be able to make friendships and get further information from the group. Thank you.
Francis, I attended the games myself. It was the first time that I'd gone, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was brilliant, and I just thought it was wonderful how they adapt the games, whether you're walking, wheelchair, and how they adapted it. It was just brilliant for everybody, and to meet different regionals and places, but people from different places, it was really good. Perhaps if you put it in the bulletin, would people be prepared to pay a little bit extra? You could find out that way, I mean, I wouldn't mind paying a little bit extra, because it's such a brilliant weekend, and the hotel was fantastic, and everybody who runs it were really, really lovely people, so.
Yvonne, excuse me, was the lady before? Yeah, that lady.
Well, I really just want to highlight the last three speakers. The games are the highlight in our calendar year in our branch, and I think it would be an absolute disaster at this moment in time if they were disbanded. I'm sure members would be prepared to pay a little bit more, and I just hope they continue for as many years that we're all able to compete. Sorry about the voice.
Thanks.
Hello again, it's Alison again. I had a really lovely time, the time I actually managed to get up to the finals of the games. Fantastic weekend, it really was so enjoyable. My only question I have got is regarding to the actual competitors. Not every competitor is a polio survivor, and you are actually competing with people who are able-bodied, and I don't find that half of that is actually really, if it's for the polio people, then it should be for polio people. No disrespect, you know, it might give an opportunity for people to actually go to the national heats when, you know, you can put so many in the heats but only take 2 people forward for that particular game. So if you already got one able-bodied and the polio person gets knocked out, then you're not really going to the final, so, or to the games themselves, because you didn't qualify to actually go. And that has been a bit of a disappointment for the last few years for me.
Well, Alison, I'm going to sidestep that one. I don't get involved in the games organisation, but that's something I know that the games committee, who are made up of regional reps, are looking at. And just to answer again something Carl asked earlier about the venue, yes, it is in Leicester because they've got one of the few venues which can accommodate us, and it's centrally located. I know Crippen is also looking at some other venues which you might look at next year, which might bring the cost down as well, which is a bit of luck. But I can't answer that question for you because I don't write the rules on the games, but I would certainly ask the games committee to look again at the rules and on competitors and see if they're still satisfied that they're appropriate for today.
Can I just add to that? Sorry, can I just add to that? I think that's actually been looked at already, and it's been raised with the Games Committee by other people as well. So I think it's being looked at already. That's good.
Right, sorry, mine's pretty short. There's a bit of a focus on money saving. Is there a problem? Is there? I mean, what if it did? Let's assume it costs 40,000. Have you got other ideas or plans for the 40,000, or are you struggling to find the 40,000? Or, you know, I mean, this is an AGM. Is there any accounts?
This isn't an AGM. So the accounts.
Oh, sorry, you're right. I was
Yeah.
at an AGM yesterday.
Yeah.
Sorry, I got a bit confused. I was at sorry.
Well, I hope not, because I know accounts, no. No, the reality is that clearly the trustees are tasked with looking after your money as best as they can, and they need to ensure that every penny they spend, they're spending it wisely. So, you know, clearly they want to fritter away £40,000 a year if the general view coming from the membership, no, we don't want the games.
Otherwise is what I'm asking.
There are a number of things we can spend the money on, believe me. There are things like, you know, additional support for support services. I know how busy they are, so that, you know, more staff there would be worthwhile. Certainly the work we could do in actually extending our work with GPs, more work in terms of actually raising the profile of PPS with the politicians and indeed the medical profession in general. It all costs money, and the reality is we're now looking perhaps at more welfare-based work in terms of social care, and that's something that's been brought up at other meetings as well. So I can always spend your money. Don't worry about that. I have no plans to spend this £40,000 on anything specific. It really is just to identify if there is. What's the general feeling about the games is really the question. And from yourselves today, I think the message is quite clear. It's a great event. Anyone who's been loves it. And long may it rain. It seems to be what's coming through. So there's no suggestions of spending on something else.
I would give up the games if the money was going to be spent on the welfare of those individuals or people that were experiencing hardship because of PPS or polio. But I might not be in favour of short-term increasing in staff or staff levels or something to do with PPS or doctor, because that's relatively short-term. You know, once we've dealt with PPS and it's accepted and doctors have dealt with it and all the PIP claims have gone through, you know, that could maybe another 2 years maybe, or maybe 3. But when it's gone, it's gone. We've still got to live afterwards, and obviously there are going to be people who are struggling financially. So I would give up the games on that basis, but not on a short-term gain.
Can I just answer just one question regarding people who've got polio that are playing in the games? And I know you said you was looking into it, but would it be an idea to perhaps have a couple of the games for people, like for carers or something like that. Because what happens at the moment, it'll be something like standing darts, and you will find people there that are actual carers of somebody who has got polio, and then you've got people that have got polio. So perhaps you could do a separate one just for carers, and then everyone will be equal, because we did take someone up to the games and he was standing and he has got polio, and he mentioned afterwards that definitely someone who's able-bodied throwing darts was standing a hell of a lot better than what he was, and he did actually mention that to me.
I'm going to the next Games Committee meeting, so I can raise it with them.
There are a lot of wives and carers and husbands and whatever that's just there for the weekend, but obviously they get a bit bored because they're not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
And there are some that participate, as you say, and shouldn't quite be participating on equal ground.
It's something we can raise with the committee, but it's their decision.
Yeah, it's
Any idea about rolling the AGM and the games into one weekend? That would be a cost saving, because you spent probably a lot of money down at Raynham on that.
We actually spent very little money at Raynham, to be honest, because we got it for nothing.
Oh right.
So that was well worthwhile. But I'll take your point, and certainly some of the other suggestions that have come through from the other roadshows is that if our people are going to be there over the weekend, then maybe we can do something on the Friday, for example.
Yeah, I think you'd get more attendance,
which would bring people together and make it worthwhile. As you say, people already there. Let's make the most of it. Now, whether it's the AGM, probably not. But whether some other event, for example, would the support team be able to put something on at PIP or something like that, or some other sort of presentations? That's got possibilities, and that's something that is going to go into the mix. And I say, is well maybe a recommendation that comes through to make our money go further. Yeah, absolutely.
You want lady in front, please. Thanks.
Hello there, my name's Elaine. I was just thinking, what about lottery funding? Could lottery funding be obtained for the games?
No.
No. Oh, that's the
No,
same.
the answer is we're always looking at other ways of raising money. Lottery is obviously one of the first places we go to, but we don't meet the criteria of what they want to do. We can get some short money for various things. But the lottery isn't good for that. Okay. We are looking at going to commercial sponsors to maybe extend that way forward, but we've not been very successful so far. Right. But it's not for the want of trying.
Okay, that was just a thought. That's not working.
Yeah, Eddie again. I've never been to the PI games at all, but what seems to be coming through to me is the weekend in Leicester is a fabulous event. That's coming through loud and clear. Regarding the 40,000 annually, you're obviously looking to see if you can improve that, which is very important for you as a fellowship. Because Leicester is the dominant location that you have it every year, I understand, is that right, Ted? Have you tapped Leicester as a city? It's a premiership, it's got rugby, it's got other sports there. Have these bodies been approached whereby they may come along, have some of their representatives come along, but it lifts the profile of your games in a huge town that's got worldwide appeal?
Yeah, absolutely, Eddie. We've looked at all of those. We've tried all of those without much success. The only time we actually got the BBC there one year, and that was about 2012, 2013, when it was snowed off. All the weekend was snowed off, and we were the only sporting event going on in that part of the world. So the BBC came down, so we got a nice bit of TV coverage that evening. Thank you, John, to enable us to do something. So the reality is, no, it's not really something that people are looking at. We are pushing it, and I would say every opportunity we take. But we've not been successful. It doesn't mean we won't be successful in the future. But, talk about rugby, that's a Tiger. It's not quite the same, is it?
Can I just make one small point? It's come through text by somebody watching online, actually. And the fact it's actually a £100 contribution, not £110 contribution. And that's just a clarification rather than anything else.
Well, thank you, whoever that was who did online. So obviously it's working. Fantastic. Yeah, you're right. Absolutely. It's £100, 110.
He was in Watford yesterday.
He was by our office yesterday, actually, as it happened. So you're absolutely right. But it's that sort of level, and the reality is, we're just trying to get a feel, and I think it's very clear, and I think I'm getting a steer, and I have to say, I think this is the last roadshow, so I can say it. It's not dissimilar from the other roadshows.
Thank you. If there are no more comments, we move on. Yeah. Oh, sorry, lady there.
I would just like to ask, we have a lot of people, that you said 67% of people that don't attend branches. I think it should be more, there should be more adverts about it in the bulletin so that other people join in to the various regions. Because it is only through the region that you can get to the games. I just think more people ought to know about it.
Good point, well made.
It might be we need to put a central office team forward, non-branch, non-regional team, or something like that. Maybe we could look at that. So
I think so.
Non-regionally
There's a
affiliated.
lot of people, and there must be, if there's 67% that don't go to branches, then there must be a lot of people that are not, it don't even know about the games to any great extent.
The Marriott only has a capacity, obviously, a certain capacity. I don't know how full it was or whether we got any spare capacity this year or last year, but it was pretty full this year. So, 100 more people probably couldn't come, but maybe 50 can, I don't know. Holding the games every 2 years wouldn't work for me, it wouldn't work for most people, because they'd just lose interest or they'd give up the bowls or whatever they were doing. I mean, it's got to be once a year. I mean, it has to be once a year or not.
Just something on the what the lady said about the 67% don't belong to the branch. My personal experience, because I don't belong to a branch, so I decided to go online to the British Polio Fellowship website, typed in my postcode, and I found out what my nearest branch is in St George's Tooting Hospital. So there's a facility on the website that if somebody isn't part of a branch can find out where the nearest branch is.
That assumes that everybody knows how to use a computer.
Yes, of course.
That's exactly right, yes.
Yes.
They can always call in and find out as well.
Yeah, you can also call it and find out, because that's facilities. So
I don't think that entirely answers what I meant. I really do think that the bulletin goes out to all members, and because of it, I think that would be the best place to write more things about it.
Yes, of course.
Finally, I've started to discuss yesterday. So yeah.
I think one of the big problems, if I think of the years that I've been involved, for example, in this town with Neighbourhood Watch, and particularly the efforts which were made to try to resurrect Neighbourhood Watch in Watford. There's a big problem today, and I think it hits us and it hits all organisations. A lot of people just don't want to go to meetings. How one can find a way, a new way to resurrect that, to bring people in, is a challenge. And it's something obviously that we all need to think about. One thing I want to say to all of you, just that you're aware, and I'm taking the opportunity today to actually announce it quietly. We don't want to cause any problems to Brexit. There is a group of us who are determined, with all the strength we've got, to bring a new party into this country and to change this country. It will be the Young People's Party, what the young people decide it's going to be. And this is not airy-fairy, this is not in the air, but this is something important that organisations like ours and others have the possibility basically to have the right support. I'm not going to go into it in more detail. I just want to let you people know that something is going on behind the scenes and quietly behind the scenes to bring something new to Great Britain. Thank you.
Thank you. Just one comment from Crippen.
So I've got one more text, so the online forum stuff is working. So it's been pointed about able bodies against polio's playing, and the text says here the ethos has always been for members to be included in the society, not separated, whether they're polios or not. So it's about being a member of the organisation rather than having polio.
Thanks for coming.
To the point. Thank you.
Any more comments? We've got a few minutes on this topic, which is indoor games. No?
Just me again, I'm sorry. I was on the committee of the East Essex and East London, but I'll leave that to my wife now. But we've had, our last meeting, we had a guy who was a professional in orthotics. Very, very interesting. Couple of hours he spent. We've had physiotherapists from St Thomas's down to talk to us. We have a barbecue, a Christmas party. We've all trying to throw something different in, a bit of interest, because people may come along and it's just chatting to the same people, having a couple of sandwiches and a cup of tea and going home. So we do try and put something in. Further to that games thing, a lot of people who go along haven't played crib or dominoes or bowls or anything in it at all. And it seems that some of the venues that we have are not ideal for that sort of thing. You know, we may be able to get away with that where we are in Hainault, but you know, that again, get people involved again.
Thank you. Thanks. Keita, move on. Thank you.
Right, so the next topic we want to sort of cover is the Burnham bungalow. So the bungalow is owned by the fellowship, and it provides members and their families an opportunity to have a holiday by the seaside. So currently the occupancy is about 45 weeks in the year, so 86%, very good. We obviously need a couple of weeks when it's not occupied so we can do some refurbs, you know, and sort the place out. So the cost of the bungalow is about break even, and that's including the cost of the staff to administer the bungalow. And that's our treasurer, who just planted some seeds of hope there. So the questions really want to cover are, should the fellowship sell the bungalow? If the bungalow was sold, we'd get about 200,000 for it. And we could use that money to put into the holiday grant pot so that more members can access that. Or the fact that the bungalow is much loved and it's an ongoing asset for the organisation. Is there a need to sell it? So as again, your comments, please, much appreciated.
Can I just ask yourselves, a show of hands, has anybody stayed in the bungalow? 1, 2, 2 people. Thank you. Any comments? No, sorry.
Well, for somebody in a family that have stayed in the bungalow, I have to say you sell it at your disaster, because if there's only 2 of us here that have actually experienced it, then I think a few more people really need to go and benefit from it. I know my grandsons, they absolutely love it. The disappointing thing is because it's so well, what's the word I'm looking for? Occupied, attended. You have a job and a half when you've got a window of holidays, school holidays, and you ring up Roz and you say, is it free? No chance. You know, so what I'm saying is experience it for what it is. It's brought our family together. It's been worthwhile, every penny that's been spent. I'm pleased to know that there are some expenditures going to be on it, because it has looked very old and tired for a very long time. I believe that's probably a plan for the winter, early part of the winter, I think, is that right? But I would say go and experience it, and it might not be the great, you say Burnham on Sea and you think, oh, where's that? That sounds a dump. The actual place itself, the town and everything else, is just a normal seaside town, but the benefit that families can derive from it, I just say, please don't sell it.
So the clincher for me is if it's break even, then it's a no-brainer. If you don't need the money, don't sell.
Did I need the mic? No, my comment was most property prices have increased over the year, and if it's properly maintained, then that should be the same, and you can perhaps review that in 5 years.
Yeah, thank you. Any more?
Just want to say, really, if it's so well used, there's still a couple of weeks left. It'd be good, really, excepting for when it needs maintenance done, if it's used. And like what you've said, that needs to go in the bulletin. Need to have some good stories to do with people who've like yourselves, and what's it meant for the family and that, really. That should also help, really.
Yeah, as I was saying, the occupancy is very good. So if we contain that level of occupancy, it is break even. So that's not an issue. In fact, the bulletin which is on your doorsteps tomorrow, I think there's an opportunity for a couple of weeks in July that's appeared as well. So getting quick, talk to Ros. There's a couple of weeks going. So if anybody fancies a holiday by the seaside, there you go.
If there are no more specific comments about Burnham Bungalow, I would suggest if you go straight to the member issues and concerns, so anybody could raise.
This is open house, really. This is what we really want to do. So we've tried to group into themes. So this is everything else that you've got issues about. So really is what is it that we're not doing for the membership which we should be doing, and what is it we're doing which we shouldn't be doing anymore, and there's no need for it. And the biggie, of course, any ideas how we can pay for it all?
I can bring my bit in here now about politics. During Brexit, I emailed Ted to ask him specifically why they didn't issue something about the pros and cons for disabled people of whether to Brexit or not to Brexit, okay? And Ted came back to me and said, basically, we're not allowed. We're a non-political organisation. We can't do this, we can't do that. Now, with all due respect, Ted, I've done a bit of research since then. Now, I don't know if it's the trustees that are the problem or the Articles of Association that are the problem, but it's definitely not the Charities Commission, because the Charities Commission say that any charity can partake in lobbying MPs, they can lobby Parliament, they just mustn't show a political preference to either party and push any of their members towards voting for either party. But they can give both sides. Like with Brexit, you could have said, this is good for disabled people, that's bad, this is thing. You can put a case there, and you could have lobbied. We could have lobbied MP. I lobbied my MP. Unfortunately, my MP, Chris Eaton-Harris, who got a lot of heckling from me, at a lot of meetings, was a pure Brexiteer, and he wouldn't be persuaded either way. Yet the Minister for Europe, who I also spoke with, said, bloody hell, Carl, you got some damn good points there about disabled people. But Chris Eaton-Harris, who also voted for the disabled changes, by the way, and basically for austerity and the new disabled reform, isn't, in my good books at the moment, but unfortunately he's in a safe bloody seat.
Again, Carl, I take your point. The issue is, the Brexit issue was very close to the wind, and I think we would have put the charity on the edge, and I think it was too close to call. The reality, of course, was that the final vote was very close, so it was very difficult for the trustees to give a recommendation either way, and certainly the trustees never discussed it. So I think the trustee did wise by not getting involved in that particular conversation. But I'm not getting dragged into that. The reality is, of course, we do lobby on a regular basis, and indeed, Crippen and I have been up to Parliament on a number of occasions, and in fact, we had some appointments already lined up with the Secretary of State, but the general election was called, so we've lost that opportunity. However, we've now set that up, and we've got a foot in the door almost, I think, at number 10, so we can go there and talk about policy. So yes, certainly we will lobby in a non-party political way, but it would be very difficult, I think, to say that the BPF support or does not support Brexit. That would have been too close to call.
Yeah, no, I didn't want you to say that. I wanted you to just say what exactly the benefits of staying or leaving, and members can decide. Because not all members bother to listen to the political spiel, but they may well have listened to something of the
Sorry, can I just add to that? Also, on top of that, we're doing the PPS Day in each of the country parliaments. So we've done PPS Day in Cardiff, PPS Day in Northern Ireland, and the next one's in Scotland. So we are trying to get political decision makers influenced of all colours and all nations within the UK as much as we can as well through that means.
Well, funny you should mention that. It's something that John and I have been working on, that there's been a loss of a fund to allow disabled people to help them to stand for election. And as a press release been issued, was it this week or last week? I forget. Very, very recently, exactly around that. So we're hoping that will be taken up to raise that very issue, Carl.
Any other comments or take on?
I realise this isn't the AGM, but I think asking how do we pay for it all, it would be very helpful to add some financial figures in front of us before, really, so we could at least have an informed discussion about it.
Yeah, that was a little bit tongue-in-cheek. The reality is that we spend about 800,000 a year, and we get in just under 800,000 a year. That's the reality of it. So we're trying to find new ways to raise money, and obviously there's going to the lottery, and there's all these opportunities. We've managed to secure a BBC appeal. That will be in September this year. We think we've got confirmation of a well-known TV personality who will front it up for us, and more news of that as we get it confirmed. So that will hopefully get us a bit more awareness on the BBC, and also some money as well. So it's really any ideas that we haven't thought of before in order to raise the funds to enable us to do what we're doing. I think we've all been there before. We've done all the donkey work, but anything new would be greatly appreciated.
We've got great help from Rotary at the moment. Rotary turned up at one of our meetings because there was a former local member who then became John McFarlane, the president of the European Polo Union, who you know. He was a Rotarian in Wellingborough, and he got the local Rotarian Hatton Rotary Club to come along and give us a chat. And the first thing I had to ask them was, what do you do? Well, basically, there were polio eradication for years. They spent millions or billions on polio eradication. Well, now they're looking for other things to do with their money. And we're trying to point them in the way of PPS, as you know. And we're getting a damn good support from, I mean, yesterday, the chairman of the Rotary Club and I and Mike, our treasurer, was at Radio Northampton, and we were putting forward a case for the way Rotary are helping us and our hydrotherapy programme. And we've got full support for this year, and that comes to quite a bit of money.
I'm certainly aware of the work you're doing with Rotary, and that's excellent. And indeed, we're trying to develop the links we've got with Rotary, and we have a Rotary ambassador who happens to be in the room. Mm-hmm. So I don't know whether Colin might want to say something on that.
Thanks, Ted. I'm Colin Powell, and I decided when I retired to join Rotary, a way of, let's say, putting something back into society in those days when I would have nothing to do. What you learn from the inside of being in Rotary as a polio survivor is a very intransigent narrow-channelled view of what Rotary want to do, and that is to eradicate polio and move on. When we then had an opportunity, they call it My Job, when you join Rotary as part of the induction is you give a little talk at your local club about you and your background in order that they get to know you. Well, for someone, and probably like many of us in this room, it's very hard to differentiate our job and our career from our limitations through being contracting polio. So the two went into one pot, and all of a sudden I found myself elevated to giving talks to Rotary district conferences on the subject of polio. So for the last 8 years I've been hammering away within Rotary at various levels, trying to get them to realise that there's a job for them to do beyond the eradication programme, and that's vis-a-vis have a look at the needs of us still being around with PPS. And I've had several doors shut in my face when I've mentioned this. But we're gradually getting there. We've made, we had a period of time that there was virtually silence and very little intercommunication between British Polio and Rotary at national level. But we haven't given up, and we've now moved on. So Rotary have their own programme called Purple for Polio, and I think you will learn from the bulletin, they've now appointed me a Purple for Polio ambassador, which gives me a perfect situation. I now have a foot in both camps. So therefore, when I get a Rotary platform, yes, we all want to see polio eradicated, because I'm sure no one amongst us would like to have children coming into this world and having to go through what we've gone through. So we fully support their programme. What we're trying to get them to do is to support us. And that's where everyone within British Polio has a role to play. And that is what you can do at club level with your local Rotary clubs and what have you is really, really great. It's really, really perfect. But if we get you to springboard to the next stage and say, hey, we have within us an ambassador that would like to come along and talk to you at a regional level, that's where we make the most benefit. Because if you think about it like pyramid selling, at a district conference, you will have representatives from virtually every Rotary club in that area. So therefore, one voice, one session gives me an inroad, an infiltration into all the Rotary clubs within that region. So that's what we're trying to do. We are working forward. I've got a FaceTime arranged with Ted, what they call the rodeo champion within Rotary, that's based in Guernsey, and myself in July, which would take this project further forward. And there now will be a harmonisation, we hope, between the two organisations for the benefit of others. My job is twofold. First of all, to spread the message of PPS, to make them aware of PPS. And when I've spoken to two different clubs in the States, Rotary clubs in the States, they had given no thought to polio survivors in their homeland. They just didn't realise the problem even existed. So it's very much a learning curve. Then we say to them, but we need some money as well. And the interesting thing is, because knowing how Rotary work, we're not after the same money and fund that eradicates polio. What we're after is their treasure chest. Each club has a treasure chest for its activities and fundraisers that it does in the year, that it distributes during May and June. And it's part of that money that we're after. And, you know, a little from a lot of clubs would make a tremendous difference to the fellowship. So that's really it. You know, just spread the word of PPS, spread the word of BPF to any Rotary connection you've got. Liaise back to Crippen or myself. I think my connection's in the bulletin. Crippen is waving to me.
I'd just like to add that Colin in March went down to Newquay. He did a very powerful presentation district level there. I urge you all to go and have a look at that presentation he's done. It's on our YouTube channel, British Polio YouTube channel. Go and have a look at it, see what Colin can do, and then you can go to your local Rotaries and say, can we get Colin in that district level? Because polio survivors can talk best about polio.
And that's the interesting thing is they've just cottoned on to that within Rotary. They need us, all right, because we're the best ones that can give the reason to eradicate polio. But let's say payback is we need some cash for them for the charity. Thanks indeed.
Hello, it's Alison again. Just to reiterate what Colin said, I did manage to have a word with Eve Conway, who's the outgoing president of the RIBI, and I have tried my best to, I've met her twice now over the years, so she wasn't against it. She really welcomed what I was saying, but again, it's getting the right people within Rotary in other countries as well to actually get on board. So it is something that's ongoing anyway, Colin. Yeah, it's good news. Yeah.
But I've known Eve for many years, and we met at that conference in Newquay, and we actually got a lot of understanding. And let's say, as before, she has shunned the issue. She really did come on board this year, and a lot has happened in a very short time following that Newquay event. And at the moment, I'm hopeful to try and get on the national platform. Their organisation is so far planned in advance. God willing, it may be 2019. If I'm still got air in my body, it may be 2020. But I hope to get onto the national platform for Rotary in the UK. Thank you.
Can I just sort of add to that as well, that it's not only Rotary, there's other organisations we can work with. So there's Lions clubs and etc. There's a whole plethora of Masons of organisations we can approach and work together with, I think. And they all have deep pockets.
Thank you.
Can I just say one thing? Our chairman of our branch has actually done about 7 talks to the Rotary now, and so far we've got a small donation from them, but most of the people she's been talking to are just fascinated because they never knew that PPS was still going and how many people in this country have still got polio. So well done to Sheila. She's really trying to go around to the groups in our area to get them on board.
Thank you very much. I am an elected councillor of London Borough of Sutton, and at present I am a deputy mayor. I was invited by Rotarians where I gave a talk on disability, and that is polio. My personal experience, what I have done as a polio patient or survivor, and where I am from what I have reached. And people are amazed to see that in spite of all my problem, I have given an outstanding services to London Borough of Sutton. I have lived in this country for only 11 years. And in that 11 years, I have become a deputy mayor. What I wanted to tell you that when we are invited to Rotary Club, they come to realize that not only the polio survivors, but what we suffer, post-polio syndrome. And when I talked about post-polio syndrome, people were surprised because to them they felt that you have got polio, that was end, nothing else is going to happen. But now when I talked about and I explained to them that how was I when I was only 9 months when I got polio, how active I was, and now what I can't do. And it is a vast difference. And through that talk, I have been also invited to various clubs where I'm going to go and talk about polio. So Rotarians are doing great job, and we should join hands together with British Polio Fellowship to give a true light to the future generation of this world. Thank you.
It's Bridget again. Leading on from what the lady on my right just said, made me think about the original question was, what else should the fellowship be doing for its members that it's not currently doing now? I think that the fellowship could develop a script where any of us members can go to any public event and talk with authority and with real fact about PPS so that we're all giving exactly the same message. Maybe we could have something from Colin, from you, that we could just talk for 20 minutes or so, but just to spread the word more, because we're having great difficulties even getting GPs to understand what post-polio syndrome is. I gave my GP the PPS booklet, went back the next time and said, oh, have you read it? No, I must do that. I know she never read it. And she still, when I ever go and see her now, she says to me, well, you know more about PPS than I do. What medication do you think you should be on? That is scary. So I'm a firm believer that we should be spreading the word nationally about what it is we're going through now, in the hope that somebody else might take it on board. Well, what can we do to help these people? So if you could give us a script of some kind, I think that would be really helpful.
Beginning of last year, I had an email from a member requesting exactly what you've just asked for. And I replied in this way. Part of the presentation you do is far better if it's your story. Okay? So far as the information regarding PPS, your greatest source is the BPF website. And we cribbed on that and got him what he wanted. So, and depending on how long you want to talk and to how much detail you want to get to, the leaflets and other information on the BPF website covers that script concept. But it's not easy to actually make a script, because I know when I do a presentation, maybe just half is bulk standard and half is tweaked and moulded for the audience that I'm facing. So there's not like one size fits all. So the best bit is part of it being your own story and part of it taking the technical information and the PPS definition from the BPF website.
I absolutely agree with you, Colin. But from my own experience, I'm already doing this because my husband had Parkinson's, and I'm also a volunteer with Parkinson's UK, and I've been trained by them to go into care homes, how to care for your residents with Parkinson's. And they give us a basic script, and we can intersperse real life experience of what it was like to care for my husband, the difficulties we had and how we overcame them, and that's what makes it alive to the audience. But I do think that we should have the basic facts, the outline, and even saying that we need to spread the word more. Will all of this audience spread it?
At Griffin's suggestion, have a look what I do in terms of my have a look at what I do in terms of my presentation, and then come back to Griffin, and if there's anything that we can do between us to give something more structured, we'll do our best.
Maybe we could have 2 or 3 sample scripts that people can use rather.
Yeah, maybe,
so one for Rotary, one for other organisations. That maybe we could work on something like that.
Are you acting as an individual, or are you talking to the fellowship if you go to a presentation? Is there some way that anybody that talks could sort of be accredited somehow or whatever? Because if you just turn up somewhere and just say, I've had polio, blah, 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 it's like they want to see a label, they want to see a badge. It's today's thing.
Some really good points there. The reality is, obviously, we are trying to work much closer with Rotary, and I say Colin has described how we've developed that over the years and how we're moving that forward, and it looks like we're going to have a real positive partnership ahead. In terms of just telling people about polio and PPS, absolutely take every advantage you possibly can. There are sometimes opportunities to go on the radio, letters in the press, all that. And as Colin was saying, your story is probably the one that will sell it best because you know it best. The issue that was raised about moving forward with GPs and so on and so forth, this morning we were discussing exactly that, and the reality is that we understand that the GPs have not been trained in polio and PPS because we've not seen it in this country for many a year. So it wasn't any surprise to us when we identified that only 50% of the GPs were aware how to deal with PPS if they managed to diagnose it as much as anything else. So the recent work we've done with the Royal College of GPs now allows current GPs to go through their continued professional development by signing up to this online learning, and indeed GPs in training also have access to this. So we've done what we can to make sure every GP has access to the information. What we can't do, of course, is make sure they all access it. But what we need to do is just let everyone know and keep people informed. The issue about the script, the one exists, so I can send it to you tonight, complete with slides. It's there. But I think, again, as Colin was saying, it's really about using that as the base, but interweaving your own stories and your own experiences to put that forward. The idea of authorised speakers is something we've not considered, but as I say, what we tend to do, if anyone up phones up and say, have you got a speaker in wherever, we usually contact the local branch and say, have you got someone who might want to go along too and represent us? So they're sort of authorised because we've asked them to do it, but there's no training programme or any hoops to jump through, because ultimately it's your fellowship and you have the story. It's your story, yours, Carl, with difference to Bridget's, and so on and so forth. So it's that, I think, which makes the point, as Colin was saying, it's that personal story which really works. So when we're approached by the press and the TV, we really want to get members to do that rather than one of the team from central office. We will do it if we have to, but the story is better coming from you.
I'll shut up in a moment. I'm on my hobby horse now. I was given that script, and I did go and give a talk to a Rotarian group. It was 3 or 4 years ago now, maybe a bit longer than that. And all I can say is I think it needs quite a lot of review. And my suggestion would maybe to get some facts and some more medical facts about it. Maybe it should be passed across the expert panel and then put into a slightly different format, because it was actually quite complicated to deliver how it was delivered to me.
Down to Mike, when we were at the games, there was a guy, I think it was a GP from Malden, who developed some application. I've not managed to locate that yet, but I don't know if you can give us any information on that.
In fact, the full story is in this month's bulletin, so it's all there. Everything's in this month's bulletin. Yeah. It's in there, but that's what we were talking about. He is the director of e-learning with the Royal College of GPs, right? Dr. Pilat, and he was our contact and lead at the Royal College to enable us to develop this online training program. So as I say, GPs can now access that online, do their continued professional development, learn a bit more, get an understanding what PPS is, and as I say, would-be GPs are obviously accessing this as well.
That's not just for GPs, everybody can access that?
It's on the Royal College website, so
okay.
it is for
Royal
GPs.
College?
Royal College of GPs.
Of GPs,
but it's for them to access. It's designed for them.
Are we on any of these bullet points now? What's the fellowship doing that is not required? Have we discussed the bulletin again or not? Personally, I still get sent it. I should tell office not to send it to me because I can get it by email anyway, so presumably that saves money. Is there an annual membership?
There's a lifetime membership, and it's just gone up to 40 quid.
Right,
it's 40 quid.
Yeah, because I've done mine, if you see what I mean, but I'm just wondering, we've got how do we pay for it all? Should you charge for the bulletin a certain amount, or at least for postage or whatever or something, because most people can get it online. I've got so many copies now that I just think I don't want any more. I might as well just look at it online, because there's a lot of repetition in there, obviously, and there is some new stuff, and it's interesting, but I can look at it online. It would save money if I cancel my posted one. But the lifetime membership, I know you can put voluntary donations in, but is there a possibility of £10 a year or something, or £5 a year, or something towards having the bulletin posted if you want it posted per year or whatever?
The trustees look at that annually to see if they want to look at an annual membership. The argument is that a lifetime membership was offered many years ago, and obviously there is a responsibility to honour that. Now, if you're suggesting maybe there was a voluntary contribution annually, that would be greatly appreciated, because as I say, the £40 or £25 as it was is well spent by now, I can assure you. So the reality is any money we can get in from anywhere is used to best effect. What you were saying about reading the bulletin online, absolutely, that would save us a lot of money. The reality is, though, that the vast majority of members, about 80%, say they want to have a hard copy. And again, we want to honour that. But we are encouraging members to say if they want to receive it online, like yourself, Cole, then we're more than happy to do that, take you off the mailing list. Yes, that will save us a lot of money. We can spend that in other areas.
Yeah, so I've just forgotten what I was going to say now. It was something from what you just said, but I'll have to rethink.
Can I just say, I've got about 9 members that get our newsletter from our branch by post, because they actually like that piece of paper to look through it. And plus, they are on the more 75 up to 100 age limit, and they haven't got a computer. So they really like going back perhaps a week later and having a look at it again.
I'm just wondering, right, lifetime membership, honour it. So you're more honourable than the government, the DWP then, who didn't honour their lifetime guarantee of mobility allowance.
You might say that, I couldn't possibly comment.
Any more comments? Some open issues, concerns? Okay, final questions and comments?
While you're all thinking about a final question or comment, can I just say, obviously, as I say, Crippen has been taking down the notes of today, and that will be used to form part of the recommendations that will go to the board. And equally, if you've yet to complete the survey from the bulletin, or indeed online, if you can do so, that will also be helpful. It just sort of rounds everything else quite nicely. The more people who take part and engage in this, the better. The closing date is effectively next week, so if you could do that as a matter of priority, it will be greatly appreciated, because then I've got to start work and putting it all together.
If there are no further... Okay, there's one. Yeah.
Right, I'm Jan. I will say something. I just wanted to thank you for getting the insurance in. I didn't know about that. Obviously, I haven't been reading things properly. That's really useful, and I will pass that all on to all my friends. It's very good. Very good.
Fish insurance.
Very
Thank
helpful.
you.
Equally, if anybody has any suggestions for any similar sort of partnerships that we can work on, just bring it to our attention and we can work on that.
And indeed, if celebrities, if you know a celebrity, let us know, because obviously we want to raise our profile using that media as well. Seriously, if you know someone who might want to lend their name to what we do, we won't push them too much, I can assure you. It's just if they can lend their name, would be great. So if you happen to know David Beckham, let us know.
There's lots of them. We have to go through. I've done all this for airability and this other client. One thing, I didn't mention one. Since I got PPS and sort of got involved with the British Polio Fellowship, I also joined quite a few other disabled organisations like Sportability and Airability, and a local disabled forum which is at Northampton Borough Council. And we get GPs come along, and we get lots of people come along, and we try and intermingle, in other words, by asking them to turn up to a polio meeting or vice versa. So we get a lot of networking by joining and going to other disabled organisations' meetings. And it could be MS. I would sort of want to remember the MS, although the higher echelons hate it. And if there was one society of all, if you were thinking of joining, I'd say, avoid the MS. There's a distinct difference between the hierarchy and the members. The members are fine, the hierarchy are a different planet, literally, they're on a different planet. They're a very difficult organisation to deal with. I don't know if you've had any dealings with them, but I wouldn't touch them with a barge pole.
We're going to see them next week. There was a report that appeared in the paper a couple of weeks ago that those with MS have experienced not dissimilar symptoms to PPS. So we thought it'd be just worthwhile go and have a chat with them and see if there was any potential of working.
Very funny people, yeah, MS people said to me, look Carl, you haven't got a proper disabled card, you haven't got a polio card as such. Here, have an MS card. So I'm actually an honorary MS member. I mean, the symptoms are similar, as we know, so I can get into an MS meeting, but they don't like me.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone. It was certainly for me, it was a thoroughly enjoyable session. I learned so much, and thank you for your contributions, which, as Ted mentioned earlier on, together with other 6 roadshows, we're going to collate all the data, which is going to play a major role in our future direction. Thank you to you, but I would like to thank the members of the central office here, and also the ones who were here this morning but are not, for organising such 2 wonderful events, very useful events. Certainly, I'm sure you found them useful. I'd like to thank John from Beyond PR, our PR company, Andy, our sound and vision engineer, for making all this communication possible. And the session is closed now, but you can continue, have some more sandwiches or coffee and tea, and wish you a safe journey back home. Yeah, so one more here.
Can I just say thank you? No doubt 1 or 2 people in the room would support that. It was a lovely lunch. It's been a very informative day and much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Can we also thank Bosick, please, for his great chairmanship?
Thank you.
There'll be a little bit more tea and coffee in a minute.